In the late 1960s, Clint Eastwood was highly notorious for being a ladies' magnet. Eastwood has had so many affairs that Hollywood has even lost count. While some of the affairs were low-key, others were highly publicized. And there was this affair in particular that ruined everything. Now, after all of these years, Eastwood's daughter is letting us in on a particular affair that destroyed their family. So what did she reveal? Join us as we get into all the details. Early days. Clint Eastwood has always had a special charm that makes him stand out. He was born on May 31, 1930, in San Francisco at St. Francis Memorial Hospital. His parents, Ruth and Clinton Eastwood, lived in Oakland at the time. When Clint became famous, his mother went by the name Ruth Wood, after marrying her second husband, John Belden Wood. Clint was given the nickname Samson by the nurses because he weighed 11 pounds 6 ounces at birth. He also has a younger sister named Jean. Clint's roots go way back, as he's a descendant of William Bradford, who came to America on the Mayflower. This makes him the 12th generation of his family to be born in North America. Growing up, Clint's family moved around a bit in the 1930s due to his father's job changes. Eventually, they settled in the wealthy town of Piedmont, California, where Clint had a swimming pool. His parents each drove their own cars, and they were part of a country club. His father worked for Georgia Pacific, while his mother later took a job at IBM. Clint didn't always have the best time in school. He struggled academically and was even held back a year. At Piedmont High School, he got into trouble for writing an inappropriate message on a scoreboard and burning an effigy on the school lawn, which led to his transfer to Oakland Technical High School, where he graduated in 1949. As a young man, Clint worked a variety of jobs, including as a lifeguard paper carrier and grocery clerk. In 1951, he tried to go to Seattle University, but ended up being drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War. During his time in the Army, Clint was on a bomber that ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean near Point Reyes. After swimming 2 miles to safety, he was discharged in 1953. Clint's early life shows how much he overcame from school troubles to surviving a plane crash. His story is full of determination, and this was just the beginning of what would become an iconic career. Clint Eastwood's journey into Hollywood wasn't a simple one, but it was certainly an interesting ride. According to one version of his story while filming in Fort Ord, an assistant spotted Eastwood and took him to meet the director. But this account is questioned by Eastwood's biographer, Patrick McGilligan. In Eastwood's official biography, a man named Chuck Hill, stationed at Fort Ord, played a key role in reconnecting with Clint. Hill had Hollywood connections and was able to sneak Eastwood into Universal Studios, where cameraman Irving Glassberg arranged for him to audition. The audition was under director Arthur Lubin, who was impressed with Eastwood's physical presence standing at 6 feet 4 inches, but not so much with his acting skills. Lubin found Clint's performance amateurish, suggesting he attend drama classes to improve. Despite the criticism, Eastwood signed his first contract in April 1954 for $100 per week. However, his early acting career was marked by stiff performances and a trademark delivery of his lines through clenched teeth. Eastwood's early audition experiences were far from successful. He was rejected for a role in 6 Bridges to Cross by director Joseph Pevney in 1954. His breakthrough came with a small role in Revenge of the Creature, 1955, a sequel to Creature from the Black Lagoon. He also appeared in a number of other films, such as Lady Godiva of Coventry and Tarantula, but was still struggling to make his mark. By 1955, Eastwood's acting opportunities were growing. He worked on several other films and television shows, with his first TV appearance on NBC's Allen in Movieland in 1955. Despite these efforts, Universal terminated his contract later that same year. Eastwood joined the Marsh Agency and continued to get minor roles, including in The First Traveling Saleslady and Escapade in Japan. Without a formal contract, he was having a hard time finding consistent work, so he switched agencies. His career began to pick up in 1957, when he landed several small roles, including playing a cadet in a West Point series and a suicidal prospector on Death Valley Days. In 1958, he had a notable guest appearance as Red Hartigan on Maverick, playing a cowardly villain. The real turning point in Eastwood's career came when he was cast as Rowdy Yates in the CBS Western series Rawhide in 1958. Although Eastwood wasn't thrilled with his character, thinking Rowdy was too young and clumsy, this role became his big break. Rawhide quickly became a hit, reaching the top 20 in TV ratings and staying strong until 1965. However, the demanding schedule of filming 6 days a week for 12 hours a day was exhausting. And by the mid-1960s, the show's ratings began to slip, and it was eventually canceled in 1966. Despite Rawhide's decline, Eastwood's career was firmly on the rise. His pay increased dramatically, and by the end of the show's run, he was earning $119,000 per episode as severance pay. Though Eastwood faced many challenges early on, his perseverance eventually turned him into the star he would become. Early roles that made Eastwood. In 1963, Eastwood's Rawhide co-star Eric Fleming turned down an offer to star in A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, an Italian-made Western directed by Sergio Leone, which would eventually change Eastwood's career. At the time, Leone was still a relatively unknown director, and Eastwood was eager to break free from his Rawhide image. With the help of actor Richard Harrison, who suggested Eastwood to Leone, Clint got the role. Eastwood accepted the offer, which came with a salary of $15,000 for 11 weeks of work and a Mercedes-Benz as a bonus. For Eastwood, this film was a chance to step away from the traditional heroic cowboy roles he was known for on Rawhide. He wanted to play an anti-hero, a character that was morally ambiguous, gritty, and more complex. Eastwood played the man with no name, a character that would become iconic. Leone insisted Eastwood smoke cigars in the film to help create a distinctive mask for the character, even though Eastwood didn't smoke. Eastwood later explained that he was tired of playing the typical white hat hero, always kind and predictable, and felt it was time to explore a character who was more mysterious and unpredictable. A Fistful of Dollars became a landmark in the spaghetti western genre, offering a darker, more lawless portrayal of the Wild West. The film's success made Eastwood a star in Italy and led to his return for the sequel For a Few Dollars More, 1965, which, along with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966, would complete the trilogy. The rights to these films were sold to United Artists for about $900,000, solidifying Eastwood's place in film history. In 1966, Eastwood took a break from westerns to try his hand at a non-western film, The Witches, 1967. but his performance was met with criticism, being described as un-Clint-like. However, he quickly returned to the Western genre, starring in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly 1966, where he reprised his role as the mysterious man with no name. The film became a classic, though Eastwood's performance, while iconic, was not universally praised at first. Some critics described the film as too expensive and criticized the acting, though others appreciated Eastwood's cool demeanor. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly became the highest-grossing film of the trilogy, earning $8 million in rental earnings. Although these films were a hit with audiences, they initially faced harsh reviews in the US. Critics were divided, with some calling them poorly acted, while others recognized the film's visual brilliance, particularly Leone's cinematography. With his rising stardom, Eastwood moved on to new projects. In 1968, he starred in Hang 'Em High, a revisionist Western that marked a new chapter in his career. Eastwood played a man seeking revenge after being wrongfully lynched by vigilantes. The film was a commercial success, earning Eastwood $400,000 and 25% of its net box office earnings, further cementing his reputation as a Hollywood star. The Many Affairs of Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's love life has certainly kept the public's attention over the years. When he first arrived in Hollywood in the 1950s, Eastwood was newly married to his first wife, Maggie Johnson. This marriage would remain his longest relationship, though it wasn't without its difficulties. The couple's relationship saw its share of ups and downs, including some infidelities on Eastwood's part. Over the years, Eastwood would have several high-profile relationships and flings, some of which led to children. Eastwood became a father to 8 children with various women, including Johnson Titanic actress Frances Fisher and his second wife, Dina Eastwood, with whom he had a long marriage. His marriage to Dina lasted 17 years, but it eventually ended in divorce in 2014. However, love would find its way back into Eastwood's life when he began dating Christina Sandera around 2015. Sadly, Eastwood announced her death on July 18, 2024, sharing, "Christina was a lovely, caring woman, and I will miss her very much." Eastwood's journey with Maggie Johnson began in May 1953, when she was a student at the University of California, Berkeley. At the time, Eastwood had just been discharged from the military and was planning to attend Los Angeles City College. He visited a friend in San Francisco who set him up with Johnson, even though she was already dating someone else. Johnson recalled the moment, fondly describing how she was struck by Eastwood's looks when she saw him for the first time. "Came down the stairs of the sorority house, and Clint had his back to me. When he turned around, I was amazed at what he looked like," she said, noting that his understated charm immediately appealed to her. The two hit it off right away and went on several dates. However, Eastwood was also seeing other women, and before he moved to Los Angeles, he fathered a child with another woman in Seattle. By the time he arrived in LA, Eastwood was still dating Johnson, who had graduated and moved in with her family in Alhambra, California. It didn't take long before the couple began talking about marriage, though Eastwood was initially hesitant. Despite his doubts, he proposed, and they married on December 19, 1953, just months before Eastwood's daughter Lori Murray was born and placed for adoption, something he did not know at the time. Their early marriage wasn't without its struggles. Eastwood later described their first year together as terrible, citing his desire to continue living life on his own terms. In the late 1950s, Eastwood began an extramarital affair that led to the birth of his second child, Kimber Lynn, in 1964. It's unclear if Johnson knew about the affair, though their mutual friend Fritz Mines recalled that Johnson once asked him if she thought Eastwood was being unfaithful. Mines, wanting to ease her worries, lied to her, and Johnson chose not to focus on it. Looking back, Eastwood admitted that Johnson was a woman who knew how much room I needed, implying that their dynamic worked despite the challenges. Clint Eastwood and Maggie Johnson's marriage eventually grew stronger despite the difficulties they faced. After tying the knot in 1953, the couple went on to welcome 2 children. Their son, Kyle Eastwood, was born in 1968, followed by their daughter, Allison Eastwood, in 1972. The family relocated to Carmel by the Sea, California, where they spent 7 years building their dream home. However, during this time, cracks began to form in their relationship, particularly as rumors of Eastwood's affair with his Play Misty for Me co-star, Sandra Locke, started to swirl. Eastwood later revealed that he and Johnson had frequent arguments about the construction of their home, which only added to the growing distance between them. By 1979, after several years of his affair with Locke, the couple's marriage had deteriorated, and they officially separated. In 1984, they finalized their divorce, with Johnson reportedly receiving a $25 million settlement. Despite their split, the two maintained a friendly relationship over the years. In fact, Johnson was by Eastwood's side when he was elected mayor of Carmel by the Sea in 1986. Their daughter Allison Eastwood spoke about the relationship between her parents in July 2022, revealing that despite their divorce, the family still spent holidays together and remained close. "I'm so thankful that both of them are friends. We all celebrate Thanksgiving together," Allison said during an interview with Fox News. She emphasized how important it was for both her parents to ensure their children knew that family was always a priority. Their lives are intertwined, and it's been great, and they've always gotten along really well. "I give my mom a lot of credit for being somebody who said we have a family together, regardless of whether we're married or not. We want the kids to know that we get along, and we're friends still," Allison added, noting how much effort her mother made to keep the family together despite the circumstances. The second affair. While still married to Maggie Johnson, Clint Eastwood met stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis on the set of Rawhide in 1959. The two began an affair that would reportedly last for 14 years. In 1964, Tunis became pregnant and gave birth to their daughter, Kimberlyn Eastwood. Eastwood later claimed that he was unaware of the pregnancy at the time and wasn't informed about the baby until a year after her birth. In Clint Eastwood, a biography, he said that learning the news felt like the wind knocked out of him. Despite his initial shock, Eastwood made arrangements to provide for Kimber, though he didn't have a close relationship with her. He reportedly saw her only once every 3 or 4 months. Tunis continued to see Eastwood, often visiting him on set or at his office, but it remains unclear when their affair ended. The relationship between Eastwood and Tunis remained a private matter, and their daughter Kimber would grow up knowing her father, but with little direct involvement in his life during the affair. The messiest affair. Yet when Clint Eastwood first met actress Sandra Locke in 1972, He had no idea that their relationship would end bitterly. The two initially crossed paths when Locke auditioned for his film Breezy. At the time, Eastwood was still married to Maggie Johnson, and Locke was married to her childhood best friend, Gordon Anderson. Although Locke didn't land the part, she was later cast in The Outlaw Josie Wales in 1975, and the two began an affair. In her autobiography, The Good, the Bad, and the Very Ugly, A Hollywood Journey, Locke claimed that Eastwood told her there was no real relationship left between him and Johnson. Their affair continued after filming with Locke, even moving into one of Eastwood's homes. Despite the mounting rumors about their relationship, the couple maintained that they were simply friends. Locke publicly stated in 1978, "Everybody would love for us to say it's all true. We're madly in love, but people will believe whatever they want to believe." By 1979, Eastwood and Johnson had separated, and Locke alleged that during their relationship she had undergone 2 abortions and a 2-ball ligation because Eastwood didn't want more children. However, Eastwood denied these claims. As the years passed, the relationship between Eastwood and Locke grew increasingly toxic. While Locke remained married to Anderson in a platonic relationship, Eastwood's affairs with Jocelyn Reeves and Frances Fisher added further strain to the relationship. By 1989, the couple were barely seeing each other, and Eastwood allegedly moved all of Locke's belongings into storage and changed the locks on their home. In response, Locke filed a palimony lawsuit seeking $1.3 million from Eastwood, as well as several properties they had shared. The lawsuit was delayed for over a year while Locke was undergoing treatment for breast cancer. Finally, in 1990, Eastwood and Locke reached a settlement. Eastwood secured her a $1.5 million development deal at Warner Brothers, gave her the house where Anderson lived, and agreed to pay her $450,000 plus monthly support. However, in 1990, Locke filed another lawsuit accusing Eastwood of fraud and breach of financial duty. She alleged that all the projects she had brought to Warner Brothers were rejected, claiming that Eastwood had deliberately kept her from working. The two eventually settled out of court in 1996. Locke died in 2018 from cardiac arrest due to complications from breast and bone cancer. She and Anderson remained married and close until her death. Reflecting on her relationship with Eastwood, Locke expressed regret, saying, "My biggest misfortune, my greatest regret is that I wish I'd cut my time with Clint in half. I wish I'd found a way I'd understood who he was and where it would end 5 or 6 years earlier, so I could have gotten on with things." Eastwood and Jocelyn Reeves. While Clint Eastwood was still dating Sondra Locke, he met flight attendant Jocelyn Reeves. Although details about their relationship remained scarce, they had 2 children together. In 1986, Reeves gave birth to their son, Scott Eastwood, followed by their daughter, Catherine Eastwood, in 1988. In late 1988, while still involved with Locke, and having an ongoing affair with Reeves Eastwood, met actress Frances Fisher. The two first encountered one another when Fisher was cast in Pink Cadillac, although they didn't meet until the film's pre-production party. Fisher later described it as love at first sight when she entered the room on roller skates and saw Eastwood. She recalled in Clint Eastwood a biography that his presence was magnetic. "He looked right at me the way he does every other woman in the world, but it got to me too. When he turns it on, he can turn it on. and I just went, oh my God, look at that. The two spent time together throughout filming, and later in Los Angeles when the production wrapped. By late 1989, Eastwood and Locke's relationship had ended, and Fisher was surprised to learn about their split as Eastwood had not mentioned it to her. The pair quietly began dating and eventually moved in together. By 1992, they were attending red carpet events as a couple, with Fisher describing their relationship as steady, serious, and we have a lot of fun. Fisher also mentioned in Eastwood's biography that everything seemed perfect as long as she believed he was being faithful. In August 1993, Eastwood and Fisher welcomed their daughter, Francesca Ruth Eastwood. They experienced what Fisher described as a miraculous period of family time together. However, by the end of 1993, their relationship began to unravel. Personal conflicts. Fisher discovering that Eastwood had children with Jocelyn Reeves and paparazzi photos of Eastwood kissing another woman led to tensions. Fisher moved into the guest house, and by the spring of 1995, they had fully separated. In a 1995 interview with the LA Times, Fisher reflected on their split, stating, "With relationships with people, you're attracted to somebody for a reason. You follow it through. And if you can't get past the honeymoon stage and get into the deeper meanings of why you're together, you're doomed to just stop when things start getting tough." Despite their separation, Eastwood and Fisher have remained on good terms. In 2004, Fisher told SF Gate, "I believe when you have loved someone, if you don't destroy it with pettiness, then the love is always there." Eastwood and Dina. While Clint Eastwood was dating Frances Fisher, he met news anchor Dina Eastwood, née Dina Ruiz, who was a local to Carmel by the Sea. The two first crossed paths in 1992 when Dina interviewed Eastwood. Later, they met again at a local event. "We got along really well, and I guess we flirted a little bit because she took the film back to KSBW, and one of her associates said, 'You're going to marry him,'" Eastwood recalled in Carmel magazine. "Then we were attending a function out at Spanish Bay, and one of the hosts said, 'Do you mind sitting with Dina Ruiz?' I said no, not at all. We ended up holding hands and doing all that kind of nonsense." In early 1995, they were photographed kissing at a golf tournament, though they didn't officially become a couple until after Eastwood and Fisher had split. By September 1995, Eastwood proposed to Dina, and the following December, they went to a courthouse in Haley, Idaho, to get their marriage license. In March 1996, while Dina was on a girls' trip to Las Vegas, Eastwood arranged a wedding ceremony at his friend Steve Wynn's estate. In just 48 hours, the wedding was planned, and the couple exchanged vows. Dina later told people it was her dream wedding. Soon after their wedding, Eastwood and Dina found out they were expecting their first child. In December 1996, they welcomed their daughter, Morgan Eastwood. The couple remained married and raised Morgan together. In a 2007 interview with Carmel magazine, Dina reflected on their relationship, saying that the longest they had ever spent apart was maybe 10 days. She admired how Eastwood was the least pretentious person she had ever met, and how he cared deeply about nature. "He's one of those people who takes bugs outside. I call him Saint Francis of Assisi," she said. In 2012, Eastwood and Dina appeared on the reality show Mrs. Eastwood and Company, which focused on Dina's life with Morgan and her stepdaughter Francesca. Eastwood only occasionally appeared on the show. Sources later told people that Eastwood was furious about the series as it went against everything he stands for. By June of that year, amid the airing of the show, Eastwood and Dina's marriage began to unravel. They were still living in the same house, but they were reportedly sleeping in different rooms. Dina began spending time with her old friend Scott Fisher, who was going through a divorce. While Dina insisted her relationship with Scott was platonic, his ex-wife Erica Fisher grew concerned and contacted Eastwood in early 2013. By March 2013, Eastwood began dating Erica Fisher, which shocked Dina. Dina filed for legal separation in September 2013, seeking joint custody of Morgan and spousal support. She also took to Twitter asking her followers not to speak ill of Eastwood, stating that he was a wonderful, good-natured, brilliant person. In October 2013, Dina filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Following the divorce, Dina shared on Bethany Frankel's talk show that she and Eastwood were still on good terms. "He's lovely. He hasn't done much. It's other people around him who have done things that have blown me away. And again, my future ex-husband has done nothing wrong," she said, per E! News. "He is the sweetest. He is a loving, kind, low-key person. So my intuition was still great about marrying a good person." In July 2016, Dina married Scott Fisher in a ceremony in Santa Barbara, California. Erica Tomlinson Fisher, while Clint Eastwood was still married to Dina Erica Tomlinson, Fisher reached out to him. At the time, Erica was in the process of finalizing her divorce from her husband, Scott Fisher, who was a longtime friend of Dina. Dina and Scott had reconnected, and Erica became concerned about the nature of their relationship. After their initial conversation, Eastwood and Erica began speaking on the phone frequently. By March 2013, they began dating, though they kept their relationship private. However, Erica was photographed in Los Angeles with Eastwood in pictures obtained by the Daily Mail. The exact timeline of their relationship and how or when it ended remain unclear. Following his split from Erica, Eastwood met hostess Christina Sandera. The couple made their public debut on the red carpet at the Oscars in 2015, as reported by the New York Times. In 2018, Sandera was seen alongside Eastwood and his family, including his children, his granddaughter, and his first wife, Maggie Johnson, at the LA premiere of his film, The Mule. In July 2024, Eastwood announced that Sandera had passed away at the age of 61. What has his daughter said on the affair? Amidst these transitions, Allison Eastwood has been open about how the emotional toll of her parents' tumultuous relationship and the impact of Clint's many affairs shaped her own view on love and marriage. The pain of seeing her mother, Maggie Johnson, struggle with Clint's relationships and the instability that followed had a profound effect on Allison. Determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past, Allison made the decision in her own life to avoid marriage altogether, a choice rooted in the desire to protect herself from the kind of heartache she witnessed in her family. The emotional toll of her parents' breakup led Allison Eastwood to vow never to marry. Watching her mother, Maggie Johnson, suffer through her father's many relationships and complicated love life, Allison made the decision to avoid repeating that kind of heartbreak. Allison's childhood was marked by the absence of her father, Clint Eastwood, due to his workaholic nature. He was constantly on movie sets, filming 3 movies a year, and while she and her brother spent time with him on set, they often only saw him a few times a year. Though he was a constant presence in their lives, Clint was not the most affectionate father. and Allison found herself longing for more closeness. When her parents' marriage ended, Allison struggled with the emotional fallout. Clint's departure from Maggie for actress Sandra Locke was painful for her to witness. Seeing her mother devastated by the affair and divorce had a lasting effect on Allison. She had to mature quickly to help her mother cope, but in doing so, she felt she missed out on the simpler, carefree moments of childhood. As a child, Allison found herself questioning her role in the breakup. Despite reassurances from her parents that the separation wasn't her fault, the fear of not being enough lingered. She couldn't help but internalize the split feeling, rejected and questioning her self-worth. The divorce had a lasting impact on her self-esteem as she struggled with the notion that perhaps her existence wasn't enough to keep her family together. Fidelity and honesty became core values for Allison in her own relationships, and she found herself gravitating toward the opposite of her parents' history. She had learned from their experience, and it shaped how she viewed romantic connections. Allison's journey through her parents' divorce also influenced her career. She and her brother spent much of their time on movie sets with their father, and that exposure to the film industry led her to pursue a career in acting, which later evolved into producing and directing. Despite her proximity to fame, Allison struggled with confidence in her acting. She admitted that she might have the talent, but without the confidence to fully put herself out there, she found it hard to succeed in that realm. That lack of confidence, she believed, stemmed from the instability she experienced growing up, as well as the pressure to live up to her father's towering legacy. As Clint Eastwood's daughter, she was constantly in the spotlight, and that spotlight made it difficult to carve out her own identity without the weight of expectations. During her teenage years, Allison Eastwood struggled with the emotional fallout from her parents' divorce. At the age of 6, she didn't fully understand infidelity, but as she grew older, she became angry about it. This resentment fueled a rebellious phase in her life. She lashed out by skipping school, partying excessively, and dating older men. Typical behavior of a teenager trying to cope with internal turmoil. Despite staying in touch with her father, she still felt the absence of his presence in her life. Without two hands-on parents, Allison often found herself getting into trouble, likely as a way to grab attention. It wasn't until Allison turned 20 that she decided to turn her life around. She made the conscious choice to stop dwelling on the past, to let go of the anger, and to focus on the present and future. By that time, her family had moved on. Her mother remarried and later divorced, and they had all grown and changed. The family came together to discuss the past, and her parents encouraged her not to take their split personally. Clint Eastwood, her father, had become more open and honest with her, and their relationship became more genuine over time. Allison was able to form a strong, healthy bond with both of her parents, and she grew to appreciate their honesty. Despite moving forward, the scars from the past remained. Now 39, Allison is still unmarried and has no desire to have children, a decision influenced by her experiences growing up. She acknowledges that the fear of repeating her parents' mistakes, particularly in raising children, lingers in her. She recalls the little girl inside her who feared the damage that could come from bringing a child into a complicated situation. While she's in a loving, committed relationship with her boyfriend, a sculptor, they've chosen not to marry or have children. Both come from broken homes, and they share an understanding of the importance of fidelity and honesty. The couple is engaged, but they've decided against the legal formality of marriage, opting instead for a commitment that doesn't come with the pressure of societal expectations. Animals have been a source of healing for Allison. a way to ground herself and escape the chaos of her childhood. She grew up riding horses, and that connection with nature became her way of finding peace. She's adopted a variety of animals over the years. 3 dogs, 2 cats, 3 rabbits, and even a pet rat that was meant to be snake food. Her love for animals has extended into her professional life as she works in animal welfare, and is even developing a rescue show for National Geographic. Allison admits that if she met a man now with a history of having many children with different women, she would likely distance herself from him. She recognizes that her father, Clint Eastwood, as a successful actor, likely faced temptations, but she chooses not to judge him. The pressures of fame, constant attention from women, and long periods away from his partner made his behavior understandable, even if it was painful for Allison to witness. She is able to see that times were different when her parents married in the 1950s, and perhaps her father would have waited before starting a family had the circumstances been different. Allison maintains a solid relationship with her siblings, and they regularly gather for family events. While she doesn't see her father often due to his busy schedule, they stay in touch through phone calls and dinners. She acknowledges that she and her father share some traits: calmness, subtlety, and a dry sense of humor. It took time, but Allison has come to peace with the past. Therapy helped her process the pain, and now the memories are just that. Memories without the emotional charge they once held. Allison's story is one of healing growth and the journey toward understanding and acceptance. Although her parents' tumultuous relationship shaped much of her life, she has found ways to create a fulfilling, stable existence by learning from their mistakes and focusing on what truly matters. Which of these affairs do you think is the most damning? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fascinating stories.